Welcome to Café of Delights, conversations that enlighten and inspire with me, your host, Gale West. We are at the precipice of one of the most exciting evolutions in human history, from science to spirituality, culture, arts, cutting-edge psychotherapies, new economies, and more. We will explore how to create a world where all can thrive. In a series of riveting interviews, you'll have the opportunity to hear from those that are actively working at the edges of local, regional, and global transformation. Join me, your host and author of the book Money Come Dance With Me, Gale West, to be inspired, delighted, and filled with hope for a new reality. Café of Delights starts now. Hello, everyone. This is Gale West, and I'm coming to you from Los Gatos, California. And I'm so happy to have Laura Crandall as my guest today. Laura, where are you coming from?
I am in the greater Boston area, Gale, and I'm thrilled to be here.
The other side of the United States of America.
Exactly.
So Laura founded her management consulting firm, Slate Communications, in 2009. She's been around for a while. For over 30 years, she has worked in and consulted with industries including manufacturing, journalism, hospitality, and academia, to name a few. And 15 of those years were spent managing teams. Laura's work is dedicated to helping people within organizations discover and develop foundational management and communication skills, the things that we assume everyone has, but rarely discuss. Laura earned her master's degree from Harvard Graduate School of Education, where she studied cognitive neuroscience and organizational behavior. She is author of the new book, congratulations, Laura, of Working with Humans, Tools We Didn't Know We Need for Conversations We Never Expected to Have. Welcome, 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 Laura.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
So happy to have you.
I'm so thrilled to be here.
Since this is a Café of Delights, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions.
Excellent.
What delights your soul at this time, and what brings you hope?
What delights my soul is connection with people who are curious about what their own heart and work is calling them to do, and where that generates creativity and excitement for how we do that for each other, how we engage and connect with each other. That's delightful. Just that's that thing. And then what gives me hope is sort of the basic humanity that we have to inspire one another when we're interested and engaged and learning and willing to try making our lives more delightful.
Well, I love what your book is about, and we'll go into it even more depth. And that is honoring the human being as worthy of dignity. And I'm going to start with this quote. Put my glasses on here. The uncomfortable, if we want to get better working together, if we want to get better at working with humans, we must address the uncomfortable truth that the importance of human dignity has never been a focal point in the U.S. industrial system. That is really sad. And it's just not. So many of us get up in the morning and go to very toxic situations. And sometimes, those situations are not just our work, it's our home environment, our community environment. And a lot of it is really about that we don't honor the dignity of each human being. And we don't bring the conversations that matter into our lives. Yeah. So what's the other thing that brings you hope now? What brings you hope?
Well, in that hope is that we are able to inspire one another, to reflect on the mere fact that we are sitting here having this conversation, and that there are people who are interested in these topics, and people who are willing to participate in being curious about what might spark a little joy in their day-to-day. And to your point, not just at work or not just at home, but in any moment in daily life, what the mere fact that we can do that as people and honor our own dignity with our own imagination, um, about wondering how things might be different than what they are right now and what that experience might be like, that brings me hope.
Mhm. So that brings me to the inspiration for your book. What inspired you to write this book? I know you took a while. It took a
I
while.
did. I took a very long time to write this book. I took
Books
about
are really hard to write, I swear to
Books are
God.
hard to write, and once you get going, they get easier. But in the process, it's not easier. I took well over 10 years, closer to 14, to write this book, um, which in some ways was great because I had even more data to and personal experience to make it worthwhile. But the original inspiration was, um, I was really, really lucky early in my career. I was an executive early on in my early 20s in luxury hospitality. And I got really lucky in that I loved the people that I worked with. And even though the work was hard and it was exhausting some days, and we were doing weird things that were horrible practices, like competing over who worked more than 100 hours every week, because
Oh my God.
hospitality is 24 hours, 7 days a week.
Right.
And it was what a horrible thing to compete over. But I really enjoyed and had the privilege to work with wonderful human beings. And I want, so the impetus was what are the things that were delightful for me about that, and why was it so memorable? And I really feel that people should have the opportunity to really enjoy each other at work. And being able to see that as I moved through my career, when did that happen? When did it not? And what are the conditions under which, even under very intense work environments, where we can support one another and enjoy the work, even when it's hard, even when it's difficult, and have a good time being able to bring our whole humanity into our workplaces in a way that is respectful, that is dignified, that is generous, and that is playful. So what are the conditions that make that possible? That was the impetus for the book.
So you've had a really interesting, varied career.
Yes, I have.
And you talked about how all these different career choices have led you to where you are right now. And a lot
Yes.
of people have these really varied careers that feel like they're not connected and they don't have anything to do with each other and they're frustrated. Can you talk a little bit about how the different careers that you've had have led you to, and then, like, how did you end up going to Harvard and getting
Yeah.
your master's degree in,
Mhm.
organizational development or organizational behavior? Or
Yeah, organizational behavior
yeah,
and cognitive neuroscience.
yeah.
The well, it started because I went to massage school. I went to trade school after I got my bachelor's degree. And so I went to massage school, I became a massage therapist. And so I followed that up with going and working in an Alaskan cannery immediately after graduating from massage school, because that's a thing that people do. So
I
I,
always wanted to do that, but never was brave enough to do that.
well, that's it. Like I'd always wanted, I'm like, that sounds fun. I'd had friends who worked in Alaska and owned a fishing boat, and I happened to connect with some people who were going and working there for a summer. And it was one of the best work experiences I've ever had, hands down. Working in that cannery was amazing. Again, the people were wonderful, despite the work being very difficult and often dangerous. Um, and being able to say, okay, from there, then I then I went and worked in luxury hospitality for a number of years, almost a decade. And that's how I actually got into when I went and worked in the resort and spa industry as a massage therapist and then as a spa director. Um, that's ended up how I ended up getting into corporate education. Executive education was through needing to help people learn how to do work well in sometimes fairly esoteric environments. And that kind of moved me into the education framework around good operations, human resources, executive development. And that's how I ended up saying, I really want to advance this. I want to learn more about how people work well together as adults, and adults who are trying to work together to create any type of experience or product or situation that feels fruitful to them. That's why I then left corporate, in a corporate environment, went to Harvard, studied how adults learn best together, and then started my consulting company. So it all started from, fish.
Cannery.
From a cannery, from massage therapy and a cannery, from massage
Yeah.
school and a cannery. Yeah.
So one of the things you're talking about is that you can have the work itself be really difficult and really hard, but the work environment can be really supportive and honoring of your dignity and honoring of who you are.
Yes.
So can you talk about what makes a really good work environment from your experience and from the experience you have with helping other people create these beautiful work environments?
Right. There are a couple of things that I find, and there's a lot of obviously history and richness in examining any type of corporate culture, any type of organizational culture. But and I love that you've differentiated between what is the work itself and what is the environment. Gutting fish or sorting salmon by species or whatever for 16 hours a day, 7 days a week is not an easy thing to do. It's
No,
physically
not at all.
grueling. It's kind of disgusting, and you don't get a lot of sleep. But in that environment, there was a lot of camaraderie. There was a lot of mutual support. There was a lot of advocacy for things like the quality of what we were doing, the safety of what we were doing, even though working with dangerous equipment is dangerous. And those kind of things that we know when there was a lot of structure that supported how people could connect well together.
Mm.
That was very important. And that was true in my days in hospitality, in not only in the resort environment, but then when I worked in other types of the hospitality industry. What is the structure by which people can feel successful, whether that's education, whether that's a clear path to advancement, and also how are people brought together and encouraged to bring their own knowledge and their own skill to bear on that which they are creating together. How can we participate and add your own care and attention and interest into the work being done? And so enough structure so that there's a parameter, but also enough freedom for people to be able to feel as though they can both share and learn in an organization, in an environment, and do that safely, do that effectively, with good feedback, with opportunity for future participation, for future education. Those are some of the things that I really have found personally make a difference. And when I go into organizations that are in some sort of potentially, let's just not necessarily in crisis, but some sort of pain point that they're addressing, whether it's a positive pain of, wow, we're growing and we want to make sure we don't lose the thing that makes us special now, or whether we are, really facing a dilemma that we're not sure how to make it through.
Mm-hmm.
When people are most likely to be successful is if they have the disposition toward inclusion and participation of the skills that people bring into their work, that there isn't one way to do things, or that the people at the top don't automatically know best. But when we're invited to bring our humanity, to bring ourselves into play as we are creating together. And one of my mentors and amazing people that I got to learn from, a guy named Jack Stack, who's a principal creator in making open book management, the open book management model popular, and started the great game of business, is that he said, one of the greatest things about working with other people is that with every pair of hands, you get a free brain. And I would also say you also get a heart and a soul and a spirit that helps enliven what you're doing. So make use of it. It doesn't just have to be the labor itself. It's the humanity that goes into that labor.
I think some of the things you're talking about is allowing people to have a personal sense of agency in their lives and in their work.
Yes.
and honoring that each person brings experiences, they bring wisdom, they bring so many things that collect, that idea that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts.
Yes.
But that's, a lot of people will go, well, that's really nice, but that's not going to happen.
Mhm.
What
Well,
is
that's
your
right.
answer to that?
Yeah. Well, and I think so right now, I think that this is a really interesting topic to kind of go into because that's a very holistic view of people and what's possible in an organization. And it is possible. And it takes a lot of time and a lot of attention to manage and clarity about what are the parameters of your work? What are the things that are interesting about the work at hand to people there? What is a quality outcome? And how do we want to include people? What will feel right or feel best, or how do you evaluate what's working about people bringing their whole selves into a conversation or not? And what do we mean by participating in a way that is really holistic? It's those underlying assumptions, the tacit expectations or unclear descriptions of what we mean by those terms that gum up the works. So part of what I do in working with organizations is say, okay, well, let's define your terms about what do you mean by having people being able to bring their whole selves or not bring their whole, like what do you want from people and how can they participate well in a way that really creates an excellent experience for whatever the marketplace, whatever you're bringing to the marketplace, how are you able to define your terms that help your organization and its customers best? How can that happen?
Mm-hmm. So you're talking about the word that comes to me is clarity, the importance of clarity. And oftentimes, we think when we talk, we're speaking from our own perceptions. And we assume that everyone has those same perceptions, which they do not. And the idea that really understanding the sender may not have the receiver of the sender may